You're listening to Girls with Grafts, a burn community podcast created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Girls with Grafts. I am Rachel Kudlak. I'm one of the hosts of the podcast, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Amber Wilcox.
Hi, how are you today, Rachel? It's been a bit, so it's good to see you.
Yes, yeah, I'm enjoying some nice spring sunshine today, so I'm loving life. This is one of my favorite times of years, minus the allergies.
Well, it's getting hot here, so yes, the allergies here have been super bad in Florida. My car's been just bright yellow, and then on top of it, it's super hot here now. It's 85 today, and that's just the heat. We all know how the heat can affect us, so not fun, but we're enjoying early morning time outside before it heats up too bad. So With that, we have an exciting podcast today. So Rachel, do you want to introduce our sponsor for the day? It is a great friend of ours. So without further ado, I'll let you introduce them.
Yeah, so today's podcast is powered by the National Fire Protection Association. NFPA is a nonprofit that seeks to save lives and reduce loss with information, knowledge, and passion. You can learn more about fire safety and explore all of their educational resources by visiting nfpa.org.
And we love NFPA here. We've had lots of friends of NFPA join us, and it's always a pleasure to learn from them. So with that, we are excited about today's guest. So will you please introduce her to everyone listening or watching today?
Yes, so it is National Volunteer Week. So we're really excited to have one of our Phoenix volunteers on the show. Today we are being joined by Xiomari Castro, who is the Patient Services Coordinator at Burn and Reconstruction Centers of America, BRCA, in Augusta, Georgia, where she has worked since March of 2015. She has been an invaluable source for patients and their families at the Joseph M. Still Burn Centers at Doctors Hospital in Augusta. She works to help patients and their families and colleagues through positivity, encouragement, and compassion. She first became a Phoenix SOAR coordinator in 2018, and then in 2023, she became an instructor, instructing our first Spanish SOAR peer supporter class. Xiomari is a native of Puerto Rico and lives with her husband and best friend, Robinson, in Augusta. They have 2 children and 4 grandchildren, and outside of work, she loves to spend time with her grandkids, church family, serving God, and preaching the word of God. So thank you so much, Xiomari, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Xiomari, I have not met you before, so I'm excited for us to get to learn more about you. So to get started, can you tell us a little bit more about your involvement in the burn community, if you don't mind?
So I've been here in the burn center since 2015. I deal firsthand with patients and their families when they come directly more to the ICU for more of the more catastrophic situations. And then other times I follow with them through the outpatient clinic. What I do is offer them or help the families find resources in this area. If you have a family who's coming from Alabama or other states, I find them lodging in a place to stay through our Burn Foundation of America here. So they can coordinate lodging for them if they need gas assistance, if they need maybe a meal, if they need some clothes, whatever the families and the patient may need. Once they arrive to the burn center, I'm contacted by the staff so I can intervene, placing in, providing encouragement, burn support, connecting with burn survivors, finding just ways to keep them motivated and encouraged through the time that they are here.
So
Awesome.
what made you first interested in working in burn care?
So when I started here, I was offered the job at our burn transfer center. So Dr. Fred Mullins was opening what is now like our burn transfer center for JMS Burn Center. So I started there because I was bilingual and we get a lot of Spanish speaking patients and stuff like that. So I started there, and from there, I moved to another department, and I was able to work with a patient liaison. And I was able to volunteer my time with the Burn Foundation, and then I became a coordinator in 2018. I never knew about burns. So I never really in my life realized that there was a burn community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like a lot of people don't even know that there exists, but there is a burn community out there. Did not know anything about burns, did not know anything about medical. I ended up going back to school so I could learn medical terminology and everything just because I got interested in learning. And when I saw the passion that the doctors, the PAs and nurse practitioners had in caring for the burn patients, and then meeting new nurses and case management, and then meeting the families and what they were going through, just get me here. And I hope that I continue here for a very long time. Now I became more passionate about the burn community because it's not only about what I learned from a burn patient through the recovery process, but it's also what it taught me in life. And it taught me that whatever I'm going through is very minor when somebody has a tragedy who's changed their life forever. So I learned to even encourage myself with everything that I see here. It's not about me no more. It's about people who really needs help. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Absolutely. I think you put it into perspective too. I know even with, I know you have not had a burn injury, but I think as someone with a burn injury, I've also been able to say like, oh my goodness, like it could have been way worse, right? Or I could have had, and you just learn to be very grateful, whether it's like about you or like, right, someone else you get to meet. I think it's definitely humbled, I know myself and my husband, in terms of like being grateful for everything you have and everything that you're able to do, because it can be rough. And so, yeah, it helps put that into perspective. So tell us a little bit more about what is your favorite part of your job? Like, what do you like to do most in your role?
So other than helping a person, it's encouraging the person. So you have a family who's the loved one is burned, and is any burn, from little as it is to a big burn. To me, it's just as tragic because somewhere it's going to change their life, and then you have all these appointments to follow up, or skin grafts and surgeries and lasers and reconstruction. So many questions. Mm-hmm. So when I meet a family that comes to me and they have all these questions, and it's just new. My loved one just got burned. This is the accident. And then they start asking, what's going to happen? How are you going to get through this? What's the next step? Are they going to do rehab? Are they going to have a skin graft? So they have all these questions where the loved one is either intubated with all these IVs running through, and they just don't know what to do, what to expect. So the first thing I do is a lot of times just give them a hug, to try to just calm them down. And when you hug them, you allow them to cry, and they cry on your shoulder, and then you can start having a conversation. And that's what I like, because when I'm having a conversation, the first thing, and a lot of things, that I learned through the years being here, is that the first thing I like to tell them is just, let's calm down and let's just take this a day by day. I said, if you get a good news from a doctor today, and if they're telling you that the patient's stable today, that means that's a good news. So it's like a miracle happening daily. And that's what I call it. It's a daily miracle. If we got through today, that's good. If it came tomorrow and you got through tomorrow, that's great. With burns, you just have to take it day by day. And we're going to help them. I let them know we all going to help you. The staff is going to help you throughout the process. By the time your loved one is ready to go home, they're going to go home with what they need, whatever equipment they need. Everything is going to be arranged. So by you creating that confidence in their loved ones, I think it creates a sense of peace. And that's what I like. Just try to come in, give them a sense of peace, but also give them a sense of hope that it's not over. And that's the moment that I try to reach out to a burn survivor, like the ones we have certified by Phoenix, to come and speak to the family if their loved ones is intubated and not able to speak. But if I can bring them in and speak to a family and they can see that there's life after a burn, no matter how catastrophic it is, it could include amputation, but that there is life, that will give them a sense of hope. And then they can take it day by day as it comes. So helping the families immediately, the first moment when they come in, finding them the place to stay. Hey, we have a retreat here. It's right across the hospital. You can walk. You don't have to drive if you don't have a car. What is it that you need? Did you need a meal? Anything that I can do to help them in the process while the loved one is here. I love that. I think it comes naturally to me. I get calls all the time. They call me on my work cell phone. They call me on my personal phone. They call me on the office phone. And that's what I'm here for. And I learned that that's my calling, is to help others. Even if I'm having a bad day and you come to me with all these emotions. I have people that I'm walking down the ICU and they know who I am. And some people have even come running behind me, hugging me because they need that attention at that moment because they probably just got bad news. So anything that I can do to help ease the process, I just love to do that. I think I'm passionate about it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure, especially for the caregivers, I'm sure you see this a lot, but, caregivers often put on like I don't know, what's it called? Like a facade or like a face, like yes, in front of the survivor, because they want to be that strong person for them, because that's what the survivor does need. And I'm sure you provide so much just support and grace for them, because they can turn to you and can cry to you and be sad and be happy. And, whether it's bad news or good news, they can have someone to turn to. So, that's such an important role to have for the caregivers, especially.
Yeah, a lot of times I find a family member who's crying hysterically, and then they be apologizing. I'm so sorry, I'm crying. And I tell them first thing is it's fine to cry. A matter of fact, if you can cry right now and scream right now and just let it all out, and you can go back to the ICU room with a straight face, to your loved ones, and to try to, keep this face to motivate your loved ones, go ahead and cry, because we are entitled to cry. We're human beings. You can't make sense out of a new burn right away. So if you need to cry, the best thing is go out there, go outside. Like I tell them, drive down the road, scream and cry, come back. You have let it all out. And then it's your time to go in there. And I see patients reading books to their loved ones, talking to them. It's easier because you have let it out. So that creates the confidence that we don't know how strong we are onto you. You are going through such a tragedy. And burns is, I know cancer is bad. I know having different type of diagnosis is bad, but a burn will change your life forever. Catastrophic burns, where you have amputations and more than that, it changed your life forever. It's changed your life in the hospital without a leg, going back to your home, and just not knowing what's going to happen. So if we can find ways to help someone get home happy, or at least confident enough that they will make it in life, then we're doing a good job.
Absolutely. Definitely. Well, I'm sure that you get a lot of questions, right, from survivors, both the survivor and the parent or caregiver. But I want to spend some time on that caregiver, because I know, like, from my own experience, that was like a really difficult time for my husband and I, right? Like what you were saying brought me back, right? Of like how much we didn't know and how confusing that time can be for everyone. And so you kind of go into it thinking like, oh my gosh, this is super overwhelming. I don't know where to start. I know once we were able to find someone who we could talk to, who understood, specifically someone who had like been able to, I talked to about like the basics, right? Like, my shorts don't fit. Like, what should I do? And they were like, buy bigger shorts. And again, like, it was something silly and very simple, but it wasn't a question you wanted to ask your doctor, right? Like sometimes you don't want to ask your doctor the like ridiculous questions that you just are like, or my bandages won't stay up. What do I do? So, what kind of questions do you find that you get most common from caregivers? Anything that like may seem silly, right? But is actually like a very common question that you get asked a lot.
So is how I'm going to help him or her when we get back home. And when I go back to, so now you're going back home, let's make sure that you have everything that you need. Let's make sure that you have all the equipment that you need. And then is connecting before they leave here, connecting them with a burn survivor. Because I have been burned, so I don't know what it's going to take. So if I'm able to create a relationship between a family, a burn survivor, and one of our burn supporters already, a lot of the questions are going to be answered in their conversation. So when they get home, they can also keep that communication. I think a lot of times I get a lot of questions. So how are we going to get back to the burn center? And questions about transportations and stuff like that, especially for patients that are burned, they live far away.
Right.
A lot of times or I get questioned about how can I get somebody to talk to me while I'm at home. And where your podcast comes in, because I use your podcast a lot. Have you heard about Girls with Graft? I said, there's 2 girls, burn survivors. And I said, they're not only talking about women's and our problems, they're talking about burns. And they have physicians there and stuff like that. So I use your podcast a lot for those patients, especially who don't want to talk to someone yet. And they're not there yet, but they wanted to hear what's the life of a burn survivor. So I use your podcast. Phoenix has a lot of
awesome
resources.
To hear.
So I have resources, and one of the resources that I have that I like to use for like transportation is Angel Flight SOAR. Angel Flight SOAR is a nonprofit organization, and I think it's all over the United States. So we're partners with the one Southeast, and I can ease the survivor about transportation. We'll fly you here. And when I say you're gonna fly me here, they'll be like, "Oh, really? Yeah, we're gonna fly you here." That, just little questions like how I'm going to get back is important to them, because I don't have a car. Everything was burned. So little things. Do you have a place to stay if I come back? Can I stay at the retreat? Yes, you can. Matter of fact, do you need a gas voucher? The Burn Foundation can help you with gas. It's the little things. And like you said, what do I do if my bandages have a lot of drainage? Just reinforce it with new bandages. Call if you need assistance. We give them the telephone number. It's the little resources that you want to make sure you have when you go home.
That's very important.
Yeah. And we definitely hear those questions all the time too, of even, there's a lot of burn centers, but folks may not live close to one. So that transportation is a huge question. So for those who are listening, who maybe are further out from their injury, but need help with going back for more surgeries or whatnot, if they're not obviously close to you, like how do they go about getting some of those resources? Do they just reach out to their burn center, or what would you recommend?
So if it's a burn patient here that is transferring service to another burn center, we'll try to make that connection to the other burn center and find to see if they have, hopefully they have the same resources we have. We are lucky that our burn center is partners with the Burn Foundation of America, and their retreat is right across the entrance to the hospital. So if a family member comes with a patient in their ambulance and they don't have a car, they go there and stay, and they just can walk for all 3 visits to the ICU. So in my end, that makes it much, much easier. And we are very grateful to the Burn Foundation of America. Same thing with Angel Flight. We are very grateful with them because they're willing to bring our patients here.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
Those are, And for those listening, if your burn center isn't connected to some of those resources, this is where advocacy plays a big role too, of talking to your local burn center, making sure they're aware of these resources that are out there and seeing what you can do to help others.
And a lot of times the patients may not know, but if they call their insurance company, they may have some type of transportation services that they have never used, they have ever known that they had it. So sometimes it's just communicating it. Sometimes you have local churches that hail with Ministry of Transportation and stuff like that. It's just making that call to reach out. And don't be scared. A lot of people are just so afraid of reaching out. No, don't be scared of reaching out. Just the only thing that can happen is somebody saying, I'm unable to help you. And then we just have to knock on another door. But just never be afraid of knocking some doors to find out.
No, I think that's a great point, because I know sometimes I think, like you said, survivors are just not afraid. Like, what if this question that I have, whether it's regarding transportation or something else, is a silly question, right? Like, I don't think those exist. And I know there are, like you said, there's tons of folks out there that want to help. I know we have our Facebook group, and that is like, I always see great questions on there all the time. Like, and if, Phoenix doesn't know, I'm sure they can help you find someone that does know. And so that, I know we've had Lily on the podcast. So being able to reach out to Phoenix Society's like info at box and just ask the question. I don't think there's any question that's like dumb. Like I said, I wanted to know what to do when my pants didn't fit. And like a common question would be like, hey, just buy bigger pants. But for me, I was like so caught up in the pride of like, oh, I'm not the same size that I was because my burns are so swollen and my legs are big. And it was silly. I should have just known to buy bigger pants. But I think sometimes when you're in that moment and you're involved in so much trauma and worried about kind of just like life in general, you don't have time to like put your brain in perspective there. So yes, I think that's a great point to make, that like there is no silly question.
No, there's not. There's not. I think a burn changes the burn survivor, and it changed their families.
For good.
Women who get burned with grease burn cooking. It might be a minor burn in their hands, but some of them will not cook for a long time. Because
myself included. Yeah.
PTSD. How do I get back to cooking? And so, I mean, little questions. Again, I'm not a burn survivor, but questions like that comes my way, and I'd be like, well, just start cooking in the microwave, little things. Let's start small. Just because people may look at me, I have a small burn, I shouldn't be having this post-traumatic, trauma or disorder. That doesn't mean I don't have it. I have it. I mean, I got burned. I'm scared. So we just take it back to the basics and start all over. It's a day by day. It has to be.
It absolutely is.
Sometimes you just need to hear it. Somebody needs to tell me
what you.
I do.
Yeah. Especially when you're so overwhelmed. Like, it can be very overwhelming. So sometimes having someone to say, hey, like, it's okay. Here's how we're going to start, like you said, back to the basics, which is very important.
I had a 13-year-old left lower leg was amputated. She was about 52% burned. I don't think she cared about more of the burns. A lot of it was the amputation. You woke up from all this anesthesia, all this medication, and I don't have a leg, but I'm feeling the leg. It was traumatic. I mean, it was traumatic for her. So what I did was I brought a new recently burned survivor. I think she was a year post burns. Similar skin color, similar burns. She had amputations too. When that girl saw the other girl, how she was carrying on with her life, it changed her automatically. I mean, this girl became more positive, wanted to be more involved in her physical therapy. But when I came back and I showed her a picture of another friend of mine that was her left lower was amputated, and she was just having fun with her leg, and I showed her the pictures and the videos, that changed her life. Like, she was like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too. And I don't think it's been 1 year. It's been 1 year post burn for her, and she's back in school and she's doing great. She is doing great. Yeah, so it's the little things that help.
Well, that's the power of peer support too. I think we talk about that a lot here, and I know I got peer support shortly after returning from the hospital. I wish I had it right, like in the hospital, and it wasn't available. It was COVID, and there were a lot of factors there. But I think like being able to connect with someone who had similar burns at that time. Like she also had burns on her legs. And I was like I said, I'm going to go back to the pant question again, but it was silly. But I was like, well, what do I do about this? I want to do it. And how do I ask? Like, what questions do I ask? And actually Pam Peterson, who is a dear friend of mine and former Phoenix Society colleague, she was also on that call and said, go get a pad and a paper and just write down like how you're like everything you're talking about today, like write it down. And these are the things you have to ask. And sometimes like just having another like friend to help you like talk out all of the things that are overwhelming you can definitely help. And so, yeah, peer support, I think, is paramount. And we know that, right, at Phoenix Society, and like the success of being able to find life after your burn.
I believe if we don't have that encounter with a burn or with a new burn survivor or their family at the beginning, it may pass a few months before that burn survivor can get that help or that burn support. And a lot of times burn survivors, when we tell them about burn support or a support group or coming to a support group at the hospital, they just think it's psychiatrist or a psychology. But the minute you take away psychiatrist, psychologist, medication, and you explain, no, I'm just going to bring one of our old burn person that was here and went through the same things you're going through, they'd be more open. But if we can find ways to get the new burn survivors to have that encounters, like you said, before they leave the hospital, it would change their life forever. And the other thing that I experienced was the Phoenix World Congress. I had a patient who I met with him who was very negative, was not happy at all, was really struggling emotionally. And he went to the World Congress and he came back a whole different person. And what he says is just the minute he saw so many burn survivors that looked like him, I mean, he came a whole different person. So willing to be part of the Phoenix Society, become a burn survivor supporter. I mean, he's just all in. Him and his wife, they both went and it changed their life. But they had that encounter, I think it was a year post their burns. So it took him a year. So he had all this emotional, all this depression until he had that help.
Yeah, it's funny because we all know the power of peer support. And I get it from the survivor's perspective, especially early on. You're not ready for it. And I get that wholeheartedly. But it's like, we just want to be like, trust us. You just need to connect with someone and then you'll understand. But they have to get there on their own time and their own way. So I get it. But I wish, we could just tell everyone that and everyone would understand.
So podcasts like this help. Because when I come in and they call me and they say, Xiomari, this person is struggling, can you go and talk to them? And they're not there yet, ready to speak. I tell them about the podcast because they can see it. I'm not in it. They're not seeing me, but I'm hearing it. And believe it or not, it helps them. It helps them. But if we don't get these resources out there to the patients and to their families, and if nobody knows about it, then I feel like I'm not doing my job as a patient services coordinator. So, I mean, I thank you guys for this podcast because it really do help. Different types of conversations that you have, all the medical personnel that you're bringing, it helps. They have the Spanish shot now on Facebook too. And that's awesome. You know how many people speak Spanish that I get encountered with, but one, they're afraid of speaking to somebody else, so they're not there yet. But once they hear it, it's awesome. It's a life-changing experience.
So I'm not sure if you know this either, but we just learned this last week, I guess, on YouTube, our podcast, because our podcast does air on YouTube as well. There is translation in Spanish. So if someone wants to listen to the podcast, but they may not be English speaking, there is a little button on YouTube videos where they can also translate into Spanish, which I had no idea. So that's an interesting kind of factor too. So if you do want, and for anyone out there that may have a Spanish speaking burn survivor, you can listen to our podcast on YouTube, or they can't listen, they can read the podcast on YouTube as well, which I thought was pretty interesting.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you can click on the transcript and translate it to Spanish.
And it translates it. Yes.
That's awesome.
So yes, who knows if it translates everything 100%. So you'll have to let us know, because I don't speak Spanish, but you'll probably be able to get the gist of things on there.
I'll test it out.
Yes,
test it out for us and let us know. Report back.
Yeah. Well, I know we've been talking about Phoenix SOAR and our peer supporters and all of that, but I do just want to highlight again that it is National Volunteer Week, and Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, we do rely on our community of volunteers to help and empower anyone impacted by a burn injury. So all week long, we will be highlighting some of our volunteers, including Xiomari here, on our social media channels. And we'll also be highlighting a few ways you can get involved. So if you want to give back, be sure to check those out. But like I said, Xiomari is a volunteer. She's actually our April Volunteer of the Month. We always highlight one special volunteer each month in our newsletter. But you are a Phoenix SOAR coordinator and instructor. And like we just were talking about our Spanish resources, you have been so helpful instructing our new Spanish-speaking peer supporters. I'm so excited to have that program up and running. So first off, I just want to say thank you again, Xiomari, for all that you do for Phoenix Society and, the burn community as a whole. But I just kind of want to hear a little bit more from you on like why you are so passionate of giving back and helping others.
One, I want to thank you guys for considering me. To me, it's just very humble. To me, I give the glory to God. Passionate is because if you, I have experienced emotional moments in my life where I didn't know who to talk to. With burns, it has shown me that it is similar to any situation that you may be going in life. Mm-hmm. And I have learned that there's power in talking, expressing yourself. If you can find that one that you can talk to, that if you find somebody that can hear you with no judgment, just hear you, send you a hug, it's like it heals you. It's like a person who lost their leg. They have to go through their grieving process because they lost something that was part of them. If I'm able, and this is what I think I really like, if I'm able to come in and really just give somebody a hug with no words, but change them, and so they know that you're there to hear them, regardless of what they're going through, I think then I'm doing my job. And I think that's what I'm passionate about this. I had a mother whose son was brain dead, unfortunately, because of a house fire. When that lady met me, she just came straight to my arms and cried. Was there any words that I could have said to this mother? There was no words, but just me being there, hugging her, it helped her. And she had to then deal with paper process and all that stuff. But the minute that you're there to help somebody to change their perspective in life from what they're seeing, then I think I'm doing a good job. But again, I give the glory to God to give me a humble heart that I'm able to help others and move myself from it. Like when you guys asked me about doing this podcast, I was like, oh no, it cannot be about me, because it's not about Xiomari. It's not about me. It's about you, the burn survivors. If every hospital staff can remove themselves from their eye and just hearing a burn survivor, what they're going through, what their needs, and try to walk with them through their needs, then we're doing a good job. And it cannot be about I, like like my Dr. Hassan, who oversees Joseph M. Steele Burn Center. Dr. Hassan always says whenever he's interviewed, it's not about I need the nurses, I need the administrators, I need the case management, I need the hospital staff. We're a team. And if as a team they can save a life, then we're doing a good job. So just the people that I work for, and just to see their passion about saving a life. And then this humble girl from Puerto Rico, from the top of the mountain, comes here and try to help someone and guide them through the process. Then I think we're doing a good job. But it's not about me. I love to volunteer. I love to help. So anytime Sarah sends an email out, yeah, I can help. Yeah, I can help. When she asked me about becoming an instructor, yeah, of course, I love to help. But when I experienced that first Spanish class, not because it was the Spanish class only, it was my first class. And I did it with Lily Palacios, who is a burn survivor, and she's awesome. It's all the things that I learned from each burn survivor. So why not have a passion to just learn how to help others with somebody else's experience? Because all that I'm telling you about is about the 9 years of experience that I've encountered with each patient. Either it's over the phone, face to face, run through the clinic, a quick minute talking to someone. So I learned from burn survivors in order to tell other burn survivors what to do.
I think you said something really powerful there too, because we have a lot of burn care professionals that listen to our podcast. And I feel like we're asked a lot, right? Like, what is it that makes a good burn care professional, right? Or and we've actually interviewed one of my nurses during my time. We've interviewed lots of burn care professionals. And so we ask this question a lot, but I think it's really important that, like, what information you just shared about how to remove yourself and think about others, because I think that makes the difference between like a good burn care professional and a great one, right? Of knowing like, how can what I do today like impact you? I know my nurse, right? Like for me, it was like he would come in and try to find a way to connect with me first, because he was also a person, right? So finding like the human connection before you just jump to business. And so I think what you said was very powerful, because that is really important, right? Of like being able to kind of do what you need to make that person feel comfortable in whatever way that means, because it is a really traumatic thing. And to just go in and do your business and do your job, like it is more than a job, unfortunately, right? Like there is more to it than just going in, giving resources and leaving. And so I think that's really important for you to say. And I open the floor for any additional advice, but I think what you just said is something like, if you're listening and you're a burn care professional, like, yes, taking the eye out of it, because it's not just one person that makes like the experience at a hospital, right? For me, my whole experience at Orlando Health was good, but it wasn't just one person, right? It wasn't like just every nurse that walked in the door had that attitude. Every doctor that talked to me had good advice to share. So it was like a whole team experience that makes, I think, like the burn care experience really important.
So if I come in and you tell me, well, I'm only 15% of my body is burned. So in my head, I would think it's a minor burn. And then they said it's a second degree. Then in my head, I'd be like, oh, if it's a second degree, you're going to come out really good. But for that person, it's the first time that they're burned. They probably don't even know nobody else that been burned. They don't know anything about cadaver grafts, skin grafts, nothing. So it's really new to them. So if I come in and said, oh, no worry, you're going to be okay, it's just a second degree burn, that person's probably looking at me like, this girl is really rude. But if I sit there and just listen to their concerns, and then I reassure them with, you know what, well, it's a second degree burn. I see that it usually heals between 4 to 6 weeks. And if you follow the scar management, and if you follow this and you follow the instructions, I'm telling you, you're going to heal. But I first have to allow them to express themselves, express their concerns, their worries.
Yes.
Completely new. To us, it's not. To a surgeon that's been here, this center has been open since 1977. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of old staff that are very familiar with burns. But if we all go in there with our experience, when it's new to a person, it's not worth it. So they don't need my experience. What they need is for me to listen to them and they guide them through the process. So hospital staff can just, even though they already know because they're medical that the person is going to do well, but if they focus on just guiding them, like physical therapy, I'll go back to that little girl who really touched my heart and it marked my life forever. When she was doing physical therapy, it was very painful. So I used to go in there and I used to play her song, her favorite song. It was a Christian song. And she used to be mad about being in pain. But the physical therapist was able to work with her while I kept playing the music that she liked. And when we left, she was always mad at me. She was very sassy because she went through painful therapy. Right. But she was grateful at the end that she was there trying to find her what makes you comfortable, what will get your focus off this physical therapy and your pain. Yes, play me this song, play me that song. And if we could be there as human, like I would want to treat me. Yes, we need to think about the other person because
absolutely.
But the other person is not.
And sometimes it's something really small. I remember, and you saying this makes me laugh because I remember like I was so upset with my hair, like in there, right? Like you're like in the hospital bed and my hair just was long and I didn't have like the hands, both of my hands were burned. I couldn't put it up in a bun. And I just remember being so upset. Like my hair is just everywhere. It's driving me nuts and I'm warm. And I just wish I could like put it up into a bun, but I can't use my hands. And I'll never forget, like a nurse came in and she braided my hair. And you would have thought like, to me, that was like, she gave me $1 million, but it was like the small time that she took. Like she didn't have to do that. That was not in her job description to braid my hair, but she came in and she did exactly that. And because she could see that I was struggling, we asked my husband to do it, who most men don't know how to do any braids to hair. So my husband was like struggling with it. She came in, she took the brush and she braided my hair. And it was like, it made my day. And it was so little, you know, I'm sure she probably doesn't remember doing it, but like, it's those little things that like going out of your way to like give that little extra support means, and not like, as you can see, it's been several years, my burn anniversary is coming up and it's been several years. And I still like almost 4 years later, remember braiding my hair because it was like so important to me in that moment to like just not to feel a little normal again and to like have one sense of like, oh my gosh, I don't have to like stress over the fact that I'm warm and my hair is in my face all the time. So I will say like, I love that you said that because it is very important of like taking the eye out of it and doing something small, like playing music for someone or seeing what it is you can do to take their mind off of like the, you know, what is happening in that moment.
Yeah. This little girl, when she was discharged on a Sunday and I was off, but I came to the hospital to see her and she couldn't yet use her hands because both hands were burned. And she asked me to feed her, I think it was like a gelatin or a banana pudding. And she said, no, you do it. Her father was there, but she asked me to do it. And I fed her. And I never forget the sweetness, how she asked me and how satisfied I was to feed her. Again, I'm off, but yeah, here I am doing something. I had another girl who hands had an accident, a motorcycle accident, hand was amputated. Her other hand was with all the IVs and stuff, couldn't move the other hand. So she wanted some food from her country. So I find somebody from her same country, made her one of the traditional plates, brought it to the hospital, and I'm feeding her. It's out of my job description. I don't have to do that. My thing is help the patients through their process and services. But here I am feeding the patient. It's always going to be little things that we can do to change someone, to help them in their worst day.
Yeah. And we remember those moments. Like Amber remembers the nurse braiding her hair, such a small moment.
It's so small, but yes,
you remember it. And I know, you know, burnout is so real, especially with healthcare professionals. We know that, and I sympathize and empathize with them because I couldn't do it. But just reminding of compassion, to have compassion for each other, because even if it's a small little moment that you probably will forget when you go home from work that day, the burn survivor may never forget that moment. So just all these little things can really add up. You know, you talked about I can't remember, you said the miracle a day at the beginning. You know, braiding the hair was Amber's miracle of the day that day.
It was. That was definitely something that, as you can see, like 4 years later, I would say that I've also, Joey, who we've had on the show, who's my burn nurse, he also watched Tiger King with me. I know it's so silly, but he would come in and he would like talk to me and he would try to give me new TV shows to watch. And it was like the few moments. And then I trusted him enough to then like talk to him about my pain levels and things that I may not have been like wanting to talk to someone about. But it was because of the girl that braided my hair, because of Joey talking to me about Tiger King, that I was able to then trust who was taking care of me and like go from there, you know, like being able to say, okay, like I feel better about myself. So I'm more willing to talk about how I'm feeling. I'm more willing to like feel better about my recovery and leave the hospital feeling more confident in myself than feeling overwhelmed.
You know, talking about nurses and the staff, sometimes family members may see that physical therapy, number one, for a burn survivor, to try to stretch their legs and arms and hands and everything is very painful. So family members may feel like you're pushing him too hard, you're pushing her too hard. No, they're actually doing the job that needs to be done to have this person moving back again like they're supposed to. And sometimes they start being mad and upset about their physical therapists or the nurses. And yet what they're really trying to do is help your loved one. So sometimes family members also need to understand that burns, the process is very painful. But if you have a good nurse, a good physical therapist, that they're doing what they need to do to help your loved ones, just try to support them. I've seen nurses cry. I've seen nurses come here in their off days because the patient died and they're donating their organs, or they're doing the honor walk and they're here at 3:00 in the morning. So I see it from both sides. I see nurses who are very passionate about their patients getting better. And sometimes, even if I'm in the middle of something and somebody says something rude to me, I learn not to care because I've seen how hard they work. Or I heard somebody dying in the ICU, how hard that was. So sometimes I learn not to even pay attention to that no more. So sometimes, you know, it is. You may scream at me and I might be okay. And people may look at me like I'm crazy. No, I just learned you might be having a really bad day today. Same thing with a family member. They may be irate about their loved ones, their process and everything. I'll let them vent. Scream if you want to. I mean, I understand you're going through something very tragic that I can't even compare what I've been through, what you're going through. And that's the other thing. A lot of times we use, oh, I understand. No, I do not understand what you're going through. I do not understand. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm here to hear you. And sometimes that's all we need, somebody to hear you, even though you may not even be making sense of what you're talking, but you just need to let it out.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're coming up on time here shortly. So before we close out, we're going to ask you two final questions. If you're a fan of the show, then you know that this is coming. But anything else, we're opening up the floor. Is there anything else you want to share with anyone on the podcast today before we ask you those final questions?
Oh, yeah. I think I share enough, right? I'm so nervous.
You've done wonderful. We've very much enjoyed all the passion that you've had and brought to the table today. Well, I guess in spirit of those final questions, then I know we asked this a little bit earlier, but anything you want maybe a survivor or a loved one of a survivor to know, you know, listening to this podcast today, any piece of advice or something that you'd want to share with them?
I would love to let the family know and the burn survivors know that there is life after your tragic. The first few days may be the most horrible and most painful days. With burns, it's going to be a day-by-day recovery, but there will be life after a burn. I love the testimony of Sam, who was hiking and his accident, how he got back to doing the things that he loves. It may took him a while, but he got there to do the things he of. Like I see you, Rachel and Amber. I don't even know if you guys did podcasts before the burns, but now that you're doing it, there has to be some type of satisfaction. I seen a guy whose both legs were amputated, one arm amputated, and only had 3 fingers on his other arm. When he was in rehab, he learned how to paint. So he now is a motivational speaker. He can sing. So not having his legs or one arm, it still didn't stop him to make a difference in life. So yet we may not look the same after a burn. The family members that I see in the process might be traumatic, impacted for the rest of their life. But there will be life too after a burn where we can all enjoy life and just see that whatever went through in the past is not what's going to be in my future. So let's just take it day by day and just think about God has something new for me tomorrow. Let's just walk through that path.
Mm-hmm. I love that. You got to find your miracle of the day. I think we can all take that advice. I love it.
If you can give me good news today that made me smile, that will get me through the day today. And then tomorrow, God has whatever God has for me tomorrow. So let's just worry about today. If we can get it through today, tomorrow's a new day.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that, it is time for our final question, which is our Phoenix Partner question, which today is sponsored by NFPA, an organization devoted to eliminating death, injury, property, and economic loss due to fire hazards. So their question is, what is one thing that always brings a smile to your face, no matter how tough your day has been?
Seeing a patient overcome their burns. If they can live here positive, that makes my day. Or if I can just hear somebody tell me, Xiomari, that changed my life, then that makes my day. If I can see somebody smiling while I'm not smiling, but if I see you smiling, it's going to make me smile. So it's going to brighten my day, any day. And I always got to give the glory to God and my faith and my church family and the prayers. That has always helped me get through my days. There's always going to be a tomorrow. So let's just get through today. Happy.
Yes.
Awesome.
I love it.
Well, Xiomari, you have been nothing short of wonderful today. So we really, really appreciate all of the light that you've brought to us. And I'm sure that you bring every day to your patients. So thank you. Once again, like Rachel said, in honor of National Volunteer Appreciation Week, we thank you for that too. And with that, we wish you the best, and we hope to talk to you soon, Xiomari.
Thank you for having me. You guys have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it.